than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. So this week I'm joined with two guests. We've got Nick and Femi, and we're here talking about, I wanted to try and redesign how we do the podcast and have a few guests on. So this is actually the first time we've got guests. So thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
And we thought it's a fitting episode and a fitting topic that, there's mental health issues out there, where people are locked down, and, we just thought would deliver to the community maybe some tips and things that people could take away. And you guys are the experts when it comes to that sort of stuff. So, today, thought we'd get you on the show and maybe share with some of the listeners, some tips and, some of the things that you guys focus on, and maybe able to help some of the community members. So, with it, I guess I'll leave it over to you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, awesome. And I love the whole theme for this podcast as well, especially with the mental health being at the forefront at the moment, because like you were saying, Nathan, with, COVID and the lockdowns and the massive adjustments that people are going through at the moment, it's so clear right now that people aren't coping. So now more than ever, mental health is one of the most important things right now. And I'm glad that it's gotten the awareness and the attention that it needs, not in a positive light, but at least at a light for us to be, actually talking about it, which is really, really important. A bit of background as to us. I'll talk for myself because normally Femi introduces both of us. So I'll pre-frame you now, Femi, that I'm just going to introduce myself and you have time to kind of think about what you want. But yeah, as you guys know, my name's Nick. I'm a mental health nurse. I've been in the space now for about over 5 years. I particularly work in an inpatient psychiatric unit. So we're looking after people that are, that are adults, are acutely unwell, whether that's experiencing symptoms of depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. Those are the type of demographics we deal with. My whole family is actually mental health nursing. So my dad's been nursing in mental health before I was even born. Sister's now in mental health nursing. So I've grown up in this whole kind of environment with the mental health being the forefront. But growing up, I was quite defiant to it. I'm like, I'm not going to do what everyone else is going to do. I'm going to get into property. So I did lending, I really started buying houses, etc. Never did it. I bought one, came back, and now I'm in mental health nursing. So it seems to have just kind of trickled its way down to being my career and what I'm really, really passionate about. So that's a bit about me in general, and I'll get Femi get a bit of an intro as to what he's done as well.
That's awesome, Nick. I think you did a good job. Maybe I might let you start introducing yourself next time, No, so my name's Femi. So I'm also a mental health nurse. I've been in the industry for more or less the same amount of time as Nick. I worked in an inpatient setting, also in the assessment center. So assessing people whether they need to be admitted or discharged when they just come off from the community. We also are the founders of Recharge Wellness, as Nicholas may have mentioned, which is honestly just an online platform that it gives people the access to mental health services, quality mental health services, regardless of their stage, status, or situation. So that's through telehealth programs, psychologist sessions, the whole lot. So that's what we're currently doing. In terms of from a personal perspective, me also, I was also in not lending, but I was also in the home loan sector, trying to get into home loans as well. Got to the same level as Nick, did the first one, and was like, this is so much harder than I thought it would be. So I'm excited to have a chat with Nathan as well, maybe even offline about that. So this is a really exciting time for me, really.
Yeah, cool. And I guess this time in history, right? Never beforehand have we been dealt with what we're dealing with in history. And I guess from my side, one thing that I feel bad about is I make these videos and make these podcasts. For me, I feel like it's the happiest time of my life. There's so many cool things, so many opportunities out there. There's lots of greatness. But for a lot of people, this is probably the larger percentage of the population. There's people watching news, they're watching media, they're getting brainwashed by stuff out there. There's conflicting information. People are trapped in their house. They're being forced to, live a life that they didn't want to sign up for. for me, I look at it from the optimistic side that, there's lots of opportunities out there, but there's a lot of people that are, suffering and aren't doing too well. And that's why, I guess, for the first one that we wanted to get you guys on the show to talk about, a little bit about your background, some of the things that, you could give as advice to people if they are listening and they do have, some demons that they're dealing with or, whatnot that may not be going right for them. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right when you say, Nathan, like these are times that are like very foreign to us, like being in a lockdown. Even when you look at like even prior to lockdown with technology and all like social media and everything that we were exposed to growing up in this type of era at the moment. So it is it's a very interesting time. And I think that more than ever, it's so important for us, kind of like what you were saying, to be really able to really control and monitor the type of information that we're feeding to ourselves at the moment. Because like you said, you go on Facebook, everyone's talking about coronavirus. You check on the news, everyone's talking about coronavirus. They're just instilling fear and anxiety. The fact that we don't know what's actually going to happen, which is actually making matters worse. Of course, we're curious because we want to be able to know what's going on with our mental health and what the status is with the lockdown. But we don't actually recognize the side effects that it actually has as a byproduct because we're consuming all that information. We're constantly exposed to being fearful, being scared, dysregulating our nervous system to feel like we're not in control, and you should know that you're not in control. And I think that's why now we're trying to see more than ever a lot more presentations, a lot more people speaking about mental health, because of the amount of information they're consuming, the negative information that they're consuming day in, day out. That's taking a toll on people's mental health. So you can look at it with two sides, right? You can either be like, man, this is the worst thing in the world, which for some people it is, and I express my sympathy to them. Or you could also look at it from the other side, like, okay, well, what opportunity does this present to me now that things have slowed down? I can spend a bit more time with like getting to know myself and working on things that I probably wouldn't do otherwise. There's two kind of polarities here that people can look at it from.
I remember when it first came out in the start of 2020, and I was like, if you guys have to go on lockdown, if people have to go to lockdown, and you come out the other side of lockdown and don't improve yourself, like you've got issues, right? Like you need to if you're trying to work on yourself to improve yourself. Like this is a time where people are sitting there going, oh, I can't go out to the pub, I can't go and hang out with my mates, I'm really, upset and whatever. And, from that side, for me, I'm always just working, so I'm always locked down myself anyway. But I look at it from the benefits. There's benefits to it. Like people have time to improve themselves. People have time to spend with their family. People, have time to work on themselves. And I guess there is the two sides, and that's where you guys specialize into. Yeah. So. Yeah,
I think that the whole thing is, there are two sides to everything, right? Like it's all about encouraging a change in perspective. But I think a lot of the difficulty that people are experiencing is also from the lens of uncertainty, the lens of like, of course I can, work on myself. Of course I can do different things, but it's also like, I don't know what the next 2 days, 3 days, 6 months is going to look like for me. And that's what I'm really struggling with. And I think that when the approach that we take when we do help people with mental health and we do help them with the way that they think and the way that they see things and their perspective changes is mostly from the perspective of like, regardless of the uncertainty, there are still opportunities in terms of self-improvement, maybe not so much super like tangible, like you'll now get abs or whatever, but like there's opportunities to be able to adjust your way that you see the world.
Often, like from a business perspective, I just work 7 days a week, 20-hour days and stuff. And all my staff have had to leave the office, right? So that put a lot of bad stuff into our life in a business perspective. But from one part, I realized that we've been able to streamline the business and be, okay, I don't need to be in it. I don't need to be working on it. I'm on the beach. I'm forced. There's only one thing I can do. It's either sit in my house or go outside. I went to the beach. I walk 40 kilometers a day. Like every day I spend about 40 kilometers on my phone. And it's like, I'm getting fit, I'm getting skinnier. It's like, I need to work on myself. I'm being forced to. So I can look at it and be like, shit, I can't see my family. I can't see my mum. I can't see, those that are loving that. But it's like, there's things that you can do. So, yeah. And maybe if you look at maybe a few of the common things that you're seeing out there at the moment with the top sort of troubles and maybe some advice and guidance that you could give to some of the viewers, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the big things that I'm seeing at the moment generally, and Femi can comment if you're seeing anything different, but for me, there's definitely been a spike in what we're seeing in terms of anxiety and depression. it was on the news actually the other day that they were talking about how self-harm incidents have now been increasing, especially for people around our age and their adolescence, because of lockdown and because people don't know how to cope and they don't know how to manage, and maybe their support systems have been taken away from them during this whole period. And I think that, now more than ever, and it's funny because Femi and I were having a conversation about this like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, when we really undervalue the power of having such a strong support system. And however you want to create that. Some people want to have that in person, which works well for them. But because of lockdown, we can't be in person. So what can we do in addition? It's not like, I've got no support, so I'm screwed. It's like, okay, well, now we're going to need to improvise in a way that supports our mental health and still allows us to get the same kind of result. Because most times when we do things, any kind of behavior, whether some people turn into alcohol, people binge eating or taking drugs, it's just a way for them to fill the void so they can cope a little bit better with the situation. Now that things have been taken away from them, now the fact that they can't actually, regulate how they normally would or cope how they generally would, they need to now find something else. So it's about like us now being able to encourage and empower people to be like, okay, well, yes, this has thrown a lot of spanners in the work, and especially if you've already got like a diagnosis of, depression, anxiety, or any other mental health comorbidities, it does make it challenging. So what I'm going to say now sounds quite simple, but for those people that are going through it, it's not that straightforward. So it's important to be like, okay, well, during this time, now that I'm coping in this way, let's not feel bad about it because you're just doing the best that you can at the moment with the tools that you have. But what can we do? What's within your control? How's another way that we can still get that same kind of sensation, that feeling of safety or comfort, whatever it is that you're desiring in this digital age, in this age where we can't see people as much as we normally would like to. And that's why we're seeing great things with like Zoom. People have a lot more like Zoom conferences, family conferences, and connected on Zoom quite frequently. Checking up with your friends, having more blocked out time for these kind of things. And I think that really being able to really focus on creating a support system that serves you and making it habitual. So not just the thing where it's like, maybe when I got time, I'll call them, but like, no, like maybe like every night on Monday is a night where I depress, relax, and I speak to my friends, and I do that daily. It's part of a habit to get me to feel like this lockdown situation isn't as overwhelming as it is. That's like one out of like the many tools that I think is really, really undervalued, but is so, so powerful in helping people to be able to combat this coronavirus. Because without my friends in the situation I'm in at the moment, for me.
Thing about this whole kind of process, like I was mentioning, in terms of the uncertainty, in terms of the anxiety, in terms of the depression, is there is so much happening and it's difficult to make sense of it. So if there's so much happening and it's difficult to make sense of it, I think it's really, really important to establish a set routine of things that do make sense. Have an anchor. Anchoring yourself is a very important process that allows you to have some kind of certainty in a world of so much speculation. So a good example, and I'm sure that many people have heard of saying that's, really said quite commonly in like personal development or whatever it is, but it's actually quite true in psychology as well in terms of, look, you may not be able to control the day, but you control the morning. So being able to have a really solid morning routine in terms of mindfulness, what Nick was saying in terms of like having that connection, maybe every morning you call your friends or every morning you have a set routine that gives you that certainty. Like, at least I know I'm going to have these important things in my life at this time. That's an important thing to be able to have, especially going into times where you don't know what the next day is going to look like, what the next week's going to look like, what anything's going to look like. And that's why I think a lot of people are struggling because they don't have that. Routine's gone out the window because they were depending on work and other external factors to give them that routine. And then when all that kind of goes out the window, it's kind of like, well, what do I do? I've lost who I am. I've lost my routine. I've lost the structure in my life. So establishing that structure is quite important. I'm not saying plan out every minute of your life for the rest of lockdown, but having some kind of anchors throughout your day is going to make you feel a lot better.
Awesome. And like, I guess like we all go through challenges in life. Like I haven't had, lots of bad ones that I've had to deal with, but I've had lots of adversity over the years, just naturally just pushing through barriers and whatnot. And getting out of ruts, like sometimes you can feel like you're sort of, the world's on your shoulders. And I look back maybe like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years ago and seen different stages of my life where like things feel like they push you down. And I guess it's how you pull out your side and bring yourself through that. You guys specialize in mental health. How does your physical health fit into mental health as well? Like, how does that connection, like, say if someone's, depressed, but then they're just sitting in their house, like, is there a pattern there? Like, is there stuff that people could be doing physically that could help them out as well? Or
Yeah, definitely. There's actually been a lot of research and studies that show the connection between our physical health and our mental health. And even an area of interest at the moment is how important our gut health is in terms of being able to regulate and control our mental health is also another interesting and fascinating study. So it's weird because sometimes we look at mental health as it's just the brain, that's it, but there's no correlation whatsoever with everything else that I do. But it's actually the complete opposite. It's a holistic approach with our mental health. And I think that, like you were saying, for people that are like, maybe they're just lounging around, not really doing much, I would really encourage you guys as much as possible to see what you can do physically to be able to improve, your situation, not only just for like your weight loss and how you look, but also the benefits it has with your mental health. So even like simple things like going for walks, maybe around the house, or maybe doing some gardening that you probably wouldn't normally do, but now you can do because of mental health. It doesn't need to be this strenuous kind of exercise routine where it's like, okay, now I'm going to start lifting weights and getting jacked. If you want to do that, great. Like that'll be beneficial too. But just that movement, like whatever that looks like, movement is the most essential thing that we want to be able to do. And obviously from like depression, we already speak about how when you're depressed, exercise is a good form of treatment because you get those feel good chemicals that release of like the serotonin and endorphins and that chemical, that big sensation with your hormones because you are doing exercise. So I think that if people aren't doing anything at the moment, I'd really, really encourage them at some way, and as part of your structure, going back to routine, to integrate some form of movement, whether you want to dance, do things around the house, go for jogs, go for walks, whatever it is that you want to do. There's no right or wrong way to move. You just do whatever feels right, and you will see inevitably some benefit with your mental health from there.
Cool. And Femi, you got any?
Yeah, I think that, like Nick said, they work in tandem. You know what I mean? You're never going to have great physical health. You're never going to have great mental health and having poor physical health to whatever degree. They work in tandem, and it's quite difficult to have great physical health. And in real physical health, I don't just mean you're fit. I mean actual physical health in terms of sleep, nutrition, and exercise, and then be feeling these feelings of depression and anxiety. It can happen. It can happen to anybody. But I'm saying that they work in tandem and they work really well together. So if we know that, and we know that they have a correlation, it's really important to, again, what I was saying is have some kind of routine for it. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so game changing to have structure with those things. So to having you're eating the right things, you're sleeping well, you're doing your physical movement, as Nick was saying. Like, it's so important as a preemptive, but also from a reactive point of view, because mental health and like coping strategies are two-sided. They can either be proactive or reactive. Proactive means before anything's happened, it's something that you do routine and they're building up your resilience. And then there's also reactive that's like, well, this is happening right now. What do I do to ease it and get some kind of respite from these feelings? These like physical health and like exercise and movement particularly are valid for both. It can be obviously establishing your physical health generally, but then also when you're feeling anxious and you have all of these hormones, the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn hormones, being able to move can help burn off the cocktail of hormones that you're feeling, right? So being able to have those things at the forefront when it comes to your mental health is going to be absolutely game changing.
I guess, like, for me, like, looking just at like when people come to us just for like success, or like, from a financial realm, on that side, like some people, a lot of it's the mindset when people come to us. It's like, they either think they can do it, they can't do it, whatever. And looking at, if someone's, I guess, feeling depressed at the moment, they're trapped in their house, whatever, if you clean your room, then you're going to feel accomplishment, I guess, and you get something you've achieved. If you decide, I wanted to paint the house and paint the gutters, and you go do that, you're feeling that things are happening. So I guess it's changing that mindset to be able to build a to-do list, perhaps, or whatever. I don't know if that's something that start ticking off and you're making progress. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely. A to-do list, something that's visual. People just want to be able to feel. And I think this is something that we're even trying to do a lot more in the mental health space, is to be able to show people the tangible results and changes that they're making. Because I think like with anything, even if we step aside from mental health and we look about like our physical health, for example, where the goal is trying to lose weight, people get motivated when they're seeing results happen. When I step on the scale and I see that I've dropped a kilo from all my hard work, you feel that sense of accomplishment, which is going to encourage you to keep going. And with our mental health, it's a recovery process. We're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives. So you do want to feel to some degree, whether it's true or false, a sense of accomplishment, a sense of we're making the right steps daily and we are progressing. We always like to be able to feel like there's an end result, there's an end outcome at the end of the day. And I think that more so what we're trying to do even here at Recharge as well is show people that tangible change, show people the tangible results so that they don't feel like, a good analogy or example that we like to look at is that most times when we tell people to like meditate or, do some form of mindfulness activity, because we know how good it is, especially with, combating depression and anxiety, people are straight away like, okay, if I do this, I want to be able to feel a result straight away. I'm expecting something from doing this meditation practice. And then when they do it and they feel nothing, they're like, this doesn't work for me. I'm not going to do it anymore. And they start going back into their other habits and their coping mechanisms that they were doing. So what we want to be able to do, though, is that people would normally take like medication, for example. When they take it, they'll feel a result straight away. Okay, yeah, I'm less stressed. You take any of like a diazepam or anything that gives you those kind of relieving sensations, you're going to feel that straight away. So that's going to be the direct thing that you're going to do all the time. Same thing if you take alcohol, you're automatically feeling like your mood's kind of repressed a little bit. Yeah. So we need to show people, just more so to emphasize your point, Nathan, is that show people that they are making progress. And how can we do that? With a simple to-do list, or just a monitoring in mood, How was I feeling before this meditation? How am I feeling after this meditation? Okay, there's a difference in scale from 1 to 10. Those simple things that we can do and letting them know that it's at the forefront is really, really motivating and encouraging for people. And I think that when we start moving into that realm and showing people the success, showing people the tangibility and the changes that they're doing that seem intangible, I think that's going to be the way of the future. That's the way that we're trying to pave the new mental health era.
Yeah, perfect. And I guess like a lot of people, when they develop mental health issues, I don't know, I've never sort of delved in there, but it wouldn't be something that just normally occur overnight. It would occur over time and a choice of habits and cycles. So if there's a proverb, I think it's a Chinese proverb that says death by 1,000 cuts, like people cause a problem for themselves, not just once. It's like a lot of habits. So if you can't, I guess, change that same habit overnight, but if you can break the cycle of it and turn it from being bad habits or whatever into good habits, is that something that you'd be able to measure like that? Or
yeah, that's spot on. Like, I think that the big thing that we're trying to combat, especially with Recharge, is effective timeliness of intervention and being able to get people to, when these triggers do happen, like a sad situations happen, a life events happen, and usually the normal sequence, the normal timeline with people, because we never got taught how to be able to handle our emotions. We never got taught how to address our mental health. So the usual timeline goes regular, functioning, life event happened, that's traumatic, whatever. You ignore the symptoms, you hit crisis point. That's generally the timeline. So we're trying to break that. So we're trying to be able to say, okay, well, before they get to ignoring the symptoms or before they get to the crisis point, how do we actually interact with them and how do we get them to be able to do more with their mental health stuff? So it's like, and especially something like this, right? Like you're in a very tough situation with lockdown. There's not much certainty in the world happening. Before we get to the crisis point, how do we actually engage with these people and teaching them the right kind of like skills and tools to be able to handle their mental health issues and come out of this not in crisis, but in a better position?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, because I guess if you'd normally have a situation, you have a trauma, then you'd have the stages afterwards. But this time, everyone's been thrown in a shock trauma. It's like,
yes.
We've got to, everyone's got to stay in their house, and your business might turn to shit, or things go wrong. And you're right, Femi. You go to school, you get told how to be a good tax slave, you get told how to get a job and fit into the system and be a good tax law-abiding citizen, but they teach you how to, when the bell rings, you can go to the toilet or you can go home or whatever the case may be, but no one's teaching you how to take care of your emotions. No one's teaching you how to eat healthy. And Nick, you mentioned something really important. I wanted to grab you on that as well. I don't know if you could expand on this a bit more, because it could be something really important for people, is the gut. I've heard a fair bit around the actual nutritional aspect of those two linking together, and it's always an underlying, like this, different triggers for it. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I'm still fairly new in my research with gut health, but the reason why I delved into a lot is because I was having my own kind of issues in my gut, and I realized that Femi's nodding his head like, yeah, bro. Yeah. I was having my issues with my gut, but I didn't realize the toll that it was taking. I know there's more science that happened to it. Like aside from just like what I'm about to say superficially, there's something with like the bacteria that's actually formulated in your gut, and that the way that it transports around your body that actually causes us to feel this way. I can't quote me on the correct terms, but what I will say is that when you are feeling some form of discomfort in your gut, even if we just think it at a superficial sense, when you're feeling like, my stomach is, moving a bit wild right now, automatically you're like, I don't want to do anything. I feel lazy. This is the worst feeling. And you start to spiral down those, symptoms of mental health, flat, demotivated. I'm just going to stay in bed all day. I don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
And that's that current theme that happens all the time, because of just simple things like my gut feeling weird. Even when we have like an injury, for example, and like we've broken our arm, like same kind of situation. You're like, oh damn, I can't use my arm anymore. I can't no longer train. I can't go to the gym and do my bicep curls. So I'm just going to do the complete opposite and do nothing. It's these same kind of things that happen time and time again, but we're not aware of it. And the big thing is that we need to be able to develop some form of self-awareness. If there's something that we can do in this lockdown, if possible, is to instead of getting a routine, getting your supports, which are all well and good, you need to do that, but also try to develop some form of self-awareness, get to know yourself a little bit better, get to yourself to understand, okay, when is it that when I'm getting triggered and I feel upset, what's causing that? How do I normally respond to certain situations? Because these things that we tend to underestimate, we don't do as much, is going to be the pinnacle to your success when things do go left, or, a triggering event has happened, how you respond to it, because you know yourself, you know what works for you. You know what's causing this. There may be some childhood trauma that you've experienced as well. So that gives you the opportunity to also now work through that as well with some professional help, whether that's a psychologist or any form of therapist, to really see the other side of that. So that's really, really essential. The self-awareness piece and just like really understanding what's going on through your body is sensational.
So I guess maybe if you guys want to share with just the community, maybe the top 3 things that could help people get through the current lockdown situation, and maybe how, if there's any way that you guys can help them as well, what you do.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll say a couple, and then Nick can give a couple as well. My big thing is do the simple stuff continuously, and that is what's going to put you in a much bigger position. Like, don't try and look for this big philosophical, life-changing sentence that's going to light bulb you and change you. Do the simple stuff and just do it every day. Be consistent. Like, mental health is like everything. It's a muscle. It's a skill. It's something that comes over time. It takes repetition. And the big thing with repetition is consistency. That's the only way that you're going to see the results. You're not going to meditate once and feel like, whoa, me and the Dalai Lama are best mates now. Like, that's not going to happen, Like, take the time and do it consistently. I gave you like six different things there, but that's
awesome.
That's fun.
Yeah. You know what? To be honest, I don't really want to overcomplicate it by saying like a whole, saying some other tips. I think that what you've just said, Femi, is really, really powerful. And there's so many things that you can take from that. You just like formulate that and let that become a habit and a routine. Take a few small pieces out of that. You don't have to do everything at once, because I think sometimes we can get overwhelmed by being like, okay, so I need to work on my sleep. I need to do my exercise. I need to focus on my nutritional health. I need to be doing my mindfulness, all these things. No, just pick one. Stick to that, commit to one. And when you feel ready, when you feel like your capacity has expanded and you can take more things on, then do that slowly. Maybe one time you're doing you're focusing on your sleep. Then next thing could be your nutritional health. And then incrementally grow. I think that when it comes to our mental health, we don't want to rush it. We don't want to think that we're going to get a result in 12 weeks, normally like how we do with our physical health. This is something that we're doing for the rest of our life. So make sure it's sustainable. Make sure you're ready and committed to do the work daily until the rest of your life. And when you feel like you've reached it, go back, repeat, and do it again. That's literally how it would go, your mental health.
For the tips for everyone and for the feedback, how would our listeners be able to find you guys and get in contact with you guys? Able to help them with?
Yeah. I feel like if anybody is going through these difficult times, we do have psychology sessions that we run with our psychologist, clinical or registered psychologist. So if you did want to take up the session, the first session is free with a mental health care plan that you guys can use. So you can be able to see if this is right, see what type of psychologist is right for you. And you can find us at rechargewellness.com.au. So that's just how you would normally spell recharge and how you would normally spell wellness.com.au. So, yeah, you can find us on Instagram as well at all things Nick and Femi. So just Nick and Femi on Facebook, Nick and Femi. Everything's Nick and Femi, but the website's rechargewellness.com.au. So check us out, and we can go from there.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, boys. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights and your experience and, what you guys specialize on a day-to-day basis. So, hopefully the listeners enjoyed and,
It's been absolutely
Nathan.
Thanks for having us.
It's been awesome.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. And as always, if you guys have liked today's podcast, you can find us on Apple, Google, and Spotify, the No BS with Birchy podcast. If you need help with anything investing related to that, you can contact us 1300 367 925. We'll catch up soon, everyone. And thanks you guys again, Nick and Femi. Appreciate that. We'll catch up soon.
Cheers, mate.
Guys.
Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar about to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all tell lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, the Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking, my time is never wasted. Yes,